Hey everybody, have you considered starting a podcast? We here at Screwball highly recommend Podbean for getting your podcast out to a larger audience. Podbean has given us the ability to easily bring you Screwball each and every week on all of your favorite podcast services. Use the link podbean.com/screwball to sign up and save up to 35% annually. You can also use the link podbean.com/pro/screwball to sign up for a business subscription. Happy podcasting. Hey everybody, welcome back to Screwball, a baseball podcast, your home for everything baseball. I'm your host Mike Lepre, here with my co-host Frank White.
Hey, how's it going?
This is episode 92 of Screwball, as we continue through our off-season as well as baseball's off-season. We hope that everyone had a good holiday season, a good, safe and happy new year, and we chug along here with our all-time rankings list. As we did in the previous episodes, we did the AL East and the AL Central, so naturally move into the AL West all-time teams, the Astros, Angels, A's, Mariners, and Rangers. So as we did for the previous weeks, we go through all 9 positions, including DH plus starting pitching core, relieving core, and then some honorable mentions, just who were the best players to play at each position for each team. So let's just jump right into it. We're going to start with the Astros, who have had the most recent success in this division. So to start, as we kind of did in the previous weeks, let's start with the catching position. So for my all-time list for the Astros, at the catching position, I had Jason Castro. At first base, I had Jeff Bagwell. At second base, I had Jose Altuve. Third base, Alex Bregman. Shortstop, Carlos Correa. And the 3 outfielders in no particular positioning is George Springer, Carlos Lee, and Lance Berkman. And as far as the DH goes, I put Craig Biggio at DH because he played so many positions with the Astros. And I just thought he's probably one of their best hitters of all time, so makes sense. Then as far as the starting pitching core, you have Nolan Ryan, Roy Oswalt, Mike Scott, Larry Dieker, and J.R. Richard. Then your 2 relievers are Billy Wagner and Dave Smith. Then just some honorable mentions to throw out there. I have Don Wilson, Cesar Cedeno, Jose Cruz, Alan Ashby, Ken Community, and Bob Watson. So that's my Astros list. A lot of recent names on my list. If you are a newer baseball fan or if you're a younger baseball fan, you're more than familiar with some of these guys. But there's also some old names on there. Astros have been around a long time. So that's how my list is kind of shaken out. I don't know what your list is looking like for the all-time Astros team.
Yeah, I mean, I think we got very similar players, at least on the honorable mentions as well. So let's start off. I got catcher Alan Ashby, at first base Jeff Bagwell, Biggio at second base, third base Ken Community, shortstop Correa, Berkman in the outfield, Jose Cruz, Cesar Cedeno rounding out the outfield. At DH, I got Carlos Lee, the Big Puma. Starting pitching, Nolan Ryan, Roy Oswalt, Mike Scott, who's I think actually underrated. People don't really talk about him much.
I agree.
J.R. Richard and Larry Dierker. Relief pitcher Billy Wagner and Ken Forsch. And on the honorable mention / bench list here, we got Bob Watson, Terry Pohl, Altuve, George Springer, Dallas Keuchel, and Dave Smith.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the same names, maybe in different positioning or whether they're starting or they're on the honorable mentions list, but a lot of the same guys there. The Astros have had a lot of recent success. They had they had a lot of success in the early to mid 2000s. They went to the World Series in 2005. Yeah. So there's a lot of success there.
Some years with Mike Scott and Nolan Ryan.
In the 80s.
Just sparingly. Colt 45s back in the day. Really just some talent throughout the years. Some good years. Not really stretches of success or even winning championships. Just solid seasons, careers. And the Astrodome.
Yeah,
it's really that's you can't go wrong. The Astrodome is an unbelievable, thing. So, but that's really a big part of their history.
Yeah. They really only had, like
it's
I
their
said,
name.
Yeah, literally the Astrodome, the Astros. There you go. So they had some success. Like I said in in very recently is where they had their most success and their most controversy. Really, early to mid 2000s they were good.
Oh yeah.
And the 80s, yeah, and then the 80s they had they had Mike Scott as their ace. They were kind of fighting for the World Series position. I believe the Mets beat them in the 86 season to get to the World Series.
There.
So
just not long lasting like they have now.
Right.
It's been 5-6 years of dominant. Like, we're going to the World Series.
Yeah, this is their dynasty. Like, if you could pick a dynasty that the Astros have had, this is the one. So, like I said, some recent names on both lists, but they do have a pretty good history regardless. So, pretty good Astros team overall. You pretty much like what you get in there. No
Very
matter.
good pitching in this whole division.
Oh yeah, there's really not. I don't think there's any. Maybe one team that I'm kind of thinking in my head is a little lackluster, but overall, you're finding some legends, some pitching legends, especially like Nolan Ryan was on 3 of these teams. So
I'll hear his name again. So
yeah. So let's move on then from the Astros. Let's move over to the L.A. Angels of Anaheim.
Yes.
Let's see what they got. So the Angels to start the same way at the catching position. I have the best catcher that ever played for the Angels is Mike Napoli.
That's incredibly inaccurate.
It's unbelievable. I love it. First base, Darren Erstad. Second base, Bobby Grich. Third base, Troy Gloss. Shortstop, I have Eric Ibar. The 3 outfielders, again in no particular order or positioning, is Mike Trout, Tim Salmon, and Garrett Anderson. And then at DH, got Vlad, which, that's a pretty good DH to have. Then your starting pitching core here is Jared Weaver, I hope I say his name right. It just sounds stupid when I say it, but Frank Tanana.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just I don't know why it just sounds wrong when I say it. I'm like, I'm totally butchering this guy's name, but yeah, Frank Tanana, Chuck Finley, Mike Witt, and John Lackey. Then the 2 relievers I have are K-Rod and Troy Percival, and just some honorable mentions: Mark Langston, Gary Pettis, Brian Downing, Sean Figgins, Jim Fregosi, and Howie Kendrick, just to name a few.
Yes.
So again, good pitching and kind of similar trajectory to the Astros. The Angels haven't hit their dynasty yet, but a lot of recent names on there. Especially they won the World Series in 2002, so you're going to find some of those names on there.
Sure.
And they just had continued success until most recently. They have Trout, but they've been struggling. So
struggling to 500.
Yeah.
It's their struggle, so at least they're like, oh, we're not embarrassing.
Yeah, so you've got some kind of recent names here, but they're struggling to get that dynasty like the Astros got. So I'm sure they're trying to build for that, but something always gets in the way.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and the Angels have some good players. I mean, me and Mike have some different names. So I'm going to start off with...
you can't argue with Mike Napoli.
No, we're going to. I have a catcher, Benji Molina.
Incredible.
Very good catcher over Mike Napoli. First base, Darren Erstad. He had a career that no one ever talks about. He was really good. Second base, Bobby Grich. Third base, Troy Gloss, 6'8", wall of China over there. He was fantastic. Shortstop, Jim Fregosi. Outfield, Big Bad Mad Vlad, Vladimir Guerrero Sr. Outfield, Garrett Anderson, another one underrated career. Mike Trout. I don't put a bunch of live series players on these lists, unless it's some smaller teams. For a team that has so much history, Trout. I mean, come on, he deserves it there. DH Don Baylor. In the pitching, I have Chuck Finley, Jared Weaver, Nolan Ryan again. I know we kind of had not really a rule, but we try not to put them on the same, like on their list, maybe honorable mention, but not like actually on their list.
Right.
On multiple teams, but he's played almost the same amount of years for all these teams, and he was very good on all of them.
Right.
No hitters and stuff, so it's kind of hard to leave him off. I don't have him on the ace at least, other than the Astros, I put him.
Right.
But then, Nolan Ryan, Frank Tanana, John Lackey. He had a lot of success with the Angels, John Lackey. I feel like he got discredited there because of the last year or two. Relief pitching, K-Rod, Francisco Rodriguez, broke the record. Troy Percival. I'm going to break the rule here for one. I'm going to add one more honorable mention for my list here. But I do have Howie Kendrick. Come on. Got to love Howie Kendrick. Tim Salmon. Brian Downing, Albert Pujols. I know, obviously, Cardinals is where he lives. Pujols still had really good numbers with the Angels.
Sure did.
And was part of their last playoff team, so can't count that out, right?
Yeah.
Mark Langston, Brian Harvey, and my honorable mention, my other one, the one I want to mention, I kind of forgot all about here. You can't forget about Jim Edmonds with this franchise. I know he doesn't really have a bunch of stats. Obviously, the Cardinals, and he kind of Padres a couple years, and the Cubs, and kind of bounced around, but he was very memorable for the Angels. And some of his catches he made, the one diving straight backwards, I mean, that was the Angels.
Right.
The Halo one, the vest and stuff. So, of course, if I'm going to break the rule, that's, of course, one of my guys. So that's the guy I guess I could break the rule for, Jim Edmonds.
Yeah.
So, but he could easily be on this list somewhere. If it wasn't for my Trout, if you don't want to put current players on, you take Trout out, Jim Edmonds definitely on this list.
Yeah, no, I saw him on some lists as at least an honorable mention. So I wanted to save him for the more, I wouldn't say the more obvious team, but the team that I had him in mind for. So we'll get to that episode in a few weeks. So that'll be a hell of a team to look at. But well, I will have him somewhere. Just I didn't put him on the Angels just to give his time to shine with the other team, whatever. But yeah, he was really good. He's really underrated, I think. People kind of forget about him, especially his defense. I mean, Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
So let's move on to the next team, the Oakland A's, who have a very old team.
Yes.
And can get a little bit hairy with how you make the list.
This is one of the best rosters you will see we ever spit out here.
Yeah.
You could put the Yankees and Boston, and I know they had some good ones, and there's been some other good ones, but the Yankees and Boston have been dominant rosters. The A's will be one of those dominant contender if you want to take a top 3, top 5, who could beat any of these other teams. A's are one of your favorites.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, 100%. I mean, with the exception of maybe like 2 positions, it's just the whole team front to back is ridiculous. Relievers, starters, everything.
There's so many guys that you can just not have on this list that you can just call up if needed.
Yeah, that's your
minor leagues A's roster. Essentially, you can just call up and just have legends.
Yeah, because you had the Philadelphia A's, you had the '70s A's. You had like all these different runs that they had that they just had these like the '90s and
Colonel Mustard uniforms.
They had some unbelievable.
Even now.
Yeah.
Some of these guys' careers really end. There's some guys on their team right now that are really good.
I know. Yeah. Well, I mean, they're looking to sell, so you never know where after the lockout ends. You never know where they're going to go. But there's some guys there got some great careers ahead of them still. So to start again, how we've kind of usually been starting at the catching position, my starting catcher for the A's all-time team is Mickey Cochran. At first base, Mark McGwire. Second base, Eddie Collins. Third base, Eric Chavez. Shortstop, Bernt Campaneris. The outfield, again in no particular positioning, is Ricky Henderson, Al Simmons, and Reggie Jackson. And then DH, I have Sal Bando. And then for the starting pitching is unbelievable. I have Lefty Grove, Eddie Plank, Vita Blue, Catfish Hunter, and Barry Zito.
Sure, Barry Zito being your 5-man. Yeah. No,
yeah, and if that wasn't enough, then your 2 relievers are Dennis Eckersley and Raleigh Fingers.
Yeah, you're never going to get it run.
So
their guys are pitching 2-3 innings apiece.
Oh yeah,
they could pitch 6 innings right there.
Yeah, didn't they start their careers as starters? So it was, or at least
no hitter.
Yeah,
but back then your closer was 2-3 innings.
Yeah,
they could throw 6 innings combined, and then you got Catfish coming to finish 3 other innings. I mean, yeah, all right, that's pretty good.
Yeah, good luck.
Guys like Eddie Plank could throw 40.
Oh yeah, exactly.
He's like, here it goes. 792 pitches today.
Yeah, yeah, my arm's good. I'll pitch tomorrow.
Yeah.
So that's who I got as the starters, and then just some honorable mentions. I have Huston Street, Rube Waddell, Dave Stewart, Home Run Baker, Max Bishop, and Harry Davis. So just some. I mean, even the honorable mentions. I mean, you have Dave Stewart on an honorable mention list.
I forgot all about him.
It's
like on mine, and I didn't even really think twice when I went through starting pitchers. I'm like, I'm not missing anybody or nothing. Like, I feel confident about this.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Forgot about him. Yeah. So it's. I mean, that just speaks to how storied this franchise is, and even just starting pitching wise, you take away just the hitting, and you just look at the starters. It's like it's an unbelievable franchise. So I don't know what you got for. I'm sure you got similar names, but I don't know what you got.
Very similar, yeah. Catcher Mickey Cochran, first base Mark McGwire. I guess you could say the man who saved baseball 2.0. We bring it up all the time because Mark McGwire is unbelievable and should be in the Hall of Fame and should have a statue outside the Hall of Fame everywhere. He should have his number retired by almost every team. That's how good he was, important he was. Second base Eddie Collins, third base Sal Bando, shortstop Bernt Campaneris, outfield Ricky Henderson. Turn the lights off under the covers before the lights go off. Al Simmons, Reggie Jackson, DH Jimmy Fox. I did have him on the Red Sox first base list, but his numbers with the A's were even better than the Red Sox, so he had to be on this list.
Right.
Starting pitcher, Eddie Plank, Lefty Grove, Catfish Hunter, Vita Blue, and I have Charles Chief Bender as my other starting pitcher. Go look up some of his crazy stats.
Sure.
Relief pitcher Eckersley, Raleigh Fingers. Some honorable mentions / bench guys here. We got Mike's buddy, Jeremy Giambi, right?
No,
Just kidding. Not Jeremy.
Not the brother.
Jason Giambi, Jose Canseco, Home Run Baker, Jimmy Dykes, Tim Hudson, and Rube Waddle.
Yeah, there's some names there I forgot, like Tim Hudson. I didn't even put Giambi on here. Did I? I don't even know if I had Giambi on my Yankee list, which is just I don't know, it's sacrilege, really.
Yeah.
I have a bust of him in my room.
He's right there.
He was on the Yankee list. Don't worry.
He's walking. He turned around. He didn't want to look at you. He's like, "Are you kidding me?"
I know.
There's
Yeah.
only been one bust of him ever made. You have it. You're gonna put him on a list.
I have it in my possession. It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
But yeah, there were some guys there that like Jose Canseco. Like it's just the Bash brothers. It was just like.
I mean, he's an idiot. So.
Well, yeah. Maybe it's easy to forget about him, but.
I wish.
Yeah, but so I mean, you just look through that team, and like I said, even the honorable mentions. It's like
Those guys pitching. That's your pitching staff.
you just.
You don't even have to bring a bat up there. You got a shot at winning that game.
Yeah, you just bring Mark McGwire up there every once in a while and see what happens.
Mark McGwire gets 2 at bats a game. You're gonna win probably 90 games with that pitching staff.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, sure. Imagine that defense. Oh my God.
You wouldn't need it.
Yeah, that's true.
Imagine you did have all them guys in the defense. Ricky Anderson. Yeah, I feel like that's all you need.
Yeah, and Reggie back when he was younger had he had a little bit of wheels. So you like what you got. And Eric Chavez at third. If you just throw him really anywhere, so you like that. But so yeah, A's are up there with one of the better franchises we've listed so far, and as really in the AL as a whole. So I mean, the Mariners still they're gonna. There's some guys here that'll definitely push the for some contention with the Mariners, but nowhere near the A's.
Yeah.
So with that, let's move on to the next team in the division, the Seattle Mariners. Again, there's some you're going to see some names on here, but overall, I would say that they don't quite hit A's level, but there's some guys on here.
Not so much as a historic every name kind of thing with the A's. Every name with the A's or Boston or the Yankees, it's just historic Hall of Fame legends number because we retired for that franchise.
Right.
Mariners got their names, but not quite that many.
No, because they're not as they haven't been around quite as long as the
or
A's.
As successful as these teams.
Right.
A's are what, second or third in World Series wins.
Yeah, they're probably behind the Cardinals by 1 or 2. I would think.
I think it's like 14, 17, and then the Yankees 27 or something like that. So I mean, it's pretty nuts.
Yeah, so and they had a lot of success in the 90s and early 2000s. I think
long stretches.
They still
when they were good. They were good for 10 years or so.
Yeah, and they're looking like they might hit that soon. So they were good last year and they had no business being that good. So let's get into them. Like kind of like I said, how we start the other lists at the catching position. Starting catcher for the Mariners all-time team, Dan Wilson. First base, Alvin Davis. Second base, Brett Boone. Third base, Kyle Seager, just recently retired. Shortstop, Jose Lopez. And then here's where the list kind of gets nuts. You have an outfield of Ken Griffey Jr., Ichiro, and Jay Buhner. Then at DH, you have Edgar Martinez. So there's your middle lineup. And then the starting pitching is Randy Johnson and Felix Hernandez. And Jamie Moyer, Mark Langston, and Freddie Garcia. I did have Mark Langston as an honorable mention previously, but I wanted to put him on this list. I thought it
this was more his home.
I was going to say it was a little more deserving on this list, so on the Mariners all-time list, so that's why I put him there. And then as far as the two relievers, Jeff Nelson and Kazuhiro Sasaki. And then some honorable mentions, Edwin Diaz, who even though in his short stint there did have 100 saves, which pushes on the all-time saves list for them. Mitch Haniger, Mike Cameron, Raul Ibanez, Dave Valley, and Harold Reynolds, who is now obviously more of known as the sportscaster, but he did obviously spend some time there getting thrown out by Bo Jackson.
Yeah, that's what he's most memorable for, really.
So yeah, again, like some of these guys on the Mariners, you're talking about some of the best to ever play at certain positions. I mean, you have Randy Johnson, Felix, Ichiro, Ken Griffey Jr., Edgar Martinez, best DH of all time. So, but then you have Dan Wilson, Alvin Davis, and Brett Boone. So it's like, well, you have the absolute legends, and then you have the guys that kind of filled in roles and
they're franchise guys.
And yeah, they're exactly. They're not necessarily around baseball, but if you're a Mariners fan, you're like, oh yeah, so and so. So that's who I got for my all-time Mariners team.
Yeah, I got very similar names here. Catcher Dan Wilson, first base Alvin Davis, second base Brett Boone, third base recently retired Kyle Seager, shortstop A-Rod. I mean, come on. Outfield Ken Griffey Jr., Ichiro. I have Raul Ibanez out there and his multiple stints there. Raul's so cruel over there. The greatest DH of all time, Edgar Martinez, hands down, not even close. I don't care what they say. He invented the position, mastered it. Has the award named after him. That's usually a pretty good start.
Sure.
pitching, I think this might be one of the greatest pitching divisions historically. It really is. I mean, break it down. Mariners, Randy Johnson, King Felix, Jamie Moyer, Mark Langston, Freddie Garcia. I have relief pitchers, J.J. Putz and Jeff Nelson. Some honorable mentions, Jay Buhner, Harold Reynolds, the man who got thrown out by Bo Jackson. Adrian Beltray, believe it or not, he played there quite a while, had some really good stats. Mike Cameron, I think Mike Cameron at the 4 home run game.
Oh, yeah.
With the Mariners, I believe.
I forgot about that.
And some other guys, they got Mike Moore and Kazuhiro Sasaki.
Yeah, I forgot Mike Cameron had a 4 home run game. It's unbelievable.
I think the big thing, too, was something with the mascot, the Moose, and Mike Cameron. I don't know if it was like...
I have no idea.
There's something with the mascot and Mike Cameron, too. I don't know if they always did some messing around.
Maybe.
Or the Moose mascot came from Mike. Like Mike Cameron.
I see.
There's something with that. I don't remember really the history, but I think there's something there with that.
Oh, someone look it up and let us know. That's pretty cool. I'll have to look that up actually
Sure
myself.
Something. I don't know if it was like he always messed around with him, or if they made the mascot off of Mike Cameron. It was something.
Yeah, I don't know.
If he wore the antlers, I don't know.
Yeah, he might have been one to mess with the mascot.
He wore moose antlers or something. There's something there. I feel like I remember a story about that. I just don't know exactly.
Yeah. Let us know. Reach out to us and let us know if
he
that's
definitely
just...
had 4 or 5. I think it was 4 years there where he was really good at a 4 home run game.
Right. Yeah, I forgot he did that. That's pretty incredible. Yeah, so that's a pretty good, you got some legends out there, and you've got a pretty damn good outfield, no matter who you put as the third guy. You got Ken Griffey and Ichiro. Whether you put Jay Buhner, Raul Ibanez, or whoever, you're looking all right. So, yeah, again, just a really good pitching division, too, like you said. Just wherever you look, you got pitching.
Legendary.
It's amazing. So let's move on to the 5th and final team in the division, the Texas Rangers, who really have, nothing really to sneeze at here. Probably the worst pitching in the division, but even still, you've really got some names here. So to start at the catching position, Pudge, Ivan Rodriguez. At first base, I have as the all-time first baseman Mark Teixeira. Second base, Ian Kinsler. Third base, Adrian Beltray. Shortstop, Elvis Andrus. The outfield positions consist of Josh Hamilton, Juan Gonzalez, and Nelson Cruz. And at DH, I have Michael Young. For the starting pitching, I have Charlie Huff, Kenny Rogers, Kevin Brown, Yu Darvish, and C.J. Wilson. As far as the relievers go, Neftali Feliz and John Wetland fill out the bullpen. And some honorable mentions, some lesser-known guys, or at least lesser names, I would say, is Ruben Sierra, Don Locke, Rusty Greer, Frank Howard, Jim Sundberg, and Pete O'Brien. So maybe one could say the lesser of the teams here, but some recent names. Ian Kinsler, Adrian Beltray, Elvis Andrus, Josh Hamilton. These guys all kind of came from the kind of competitive dynasty to, the Giants had that, obviously, the dynasty from 2010 on, where they won 3 of 5. But the Rangers were right there, too. The Rangers were kind of knocking on the door for a few years, really. They really, if it wasn't for the heroics of David Freese and Nelson Cruz kind of messing up the play at the wall, they could have easily won that 2011 World Series.
Yeah,
so
that offense, those years were pretty just unbelievable for the Rangers.
Yeah, so you have some names there from those teams. So that's why there's a lot of recent names here. But they also, I think they had some success. I think the Buck Showalter era, maybe a little after Buck, kind of late '90s.
Yeah.
So that's what he does.
Yeah.
So more of a recent team. If you're a more recent baseball fan, you're going to recognize pretty much all these names, almost all of them. But so that's kind of what my list looks like. I don't know what your list is looking like for the Rangers.
Yeah, I mean, very similar. A lot of the same names. That's kind of how it goes with these lists. Catcher Pudge, first base Rafael Palmeiro. His stuff he got going on.
Sure.
Still playing baseball somewhere. Second base Ian Kinsler. Very, very good career.
Mm-hmm.
Third base Adrian Beltray. He had like just 2 halves of his career.
Mm-hmm.
There's the Dodgers and Mariners and the one here at Boston side of him, and then there's the Rangers side, Beltray. It's 2 different sides, and that's how incredible he was. So that's great for him. Shortstop Elvis Andrus, he really was. You go look at his stats, really good there. Outfield Juan Gonzalez, the guy doesn't get talked about. I think he had like 94, 95, 96 RBIs at the All-Star break one year.
Yeah.
We brought that up weeks and weeks weeks ago. I think it was our trivia question for the All-Star game right around that time. Outfield Josh Hamilton, I know was somewhat brief, but again, 4 RBI game, or 4 home run game there. What was it, 19 total bases?
Something like that, because
17 or 18 total bases, because he was 5-5, 4 home runs and a double, I think, or a triple, something like that.
Yeah.
The home run derby heroics, the playoff stuff he had going on.
Yeah, he was big in the game for a while. He really was.
Other outfield, Frank Howard. DH, but Michael Young, again, he played multiple positions. He was really good at all of them, but he's, if I had to peg him at one position, it was kind of hard, but I put him at DH. One of the best hitters they've ever had there. Pitching-wise, Kevin Brown. I know, Kevin Brown,
sure.
Yeah. Kenny Rogers, Nolan Ryan, of course, Charlie Huff, and Yu Darvish.
Nolan Ryan.
Yeah, of course.
On every team.
In that division, sure. Relief pitchers, John Wetland and Francisco Cordero. And some honorable mentions, Nelson Cruz, Ruben Sierra, Buddy Bell. Buddy Bell, underrated career, really. Mark Teixeira, C.J. Wilson, and Jeff Russell. Yeah.
Again, good team. And, like I said, more recent names, because they had so much success in, about 10 years ago now. They had some really good teams.
What, 90s, they really started having some talent, and then A-Rod got there, and they were really not good, but they had a couple players, Hank Blaylock, and some years like that, Frank Catalanato. And,
yep.
They were okay, and then they just exploded on the scene, and then they've kind of just fell back down to the Rangers, what they've always been. A couple good players, and they're kind of just all right, and...
Yeah, and
it's kind of their franchise, really.
Yeah, and in Texas, you'd think, especially with the other Texas team, Houston, having so much success, you'd kind of want to be. And one could say the door, the window could be closing on the Astros.
There's going to be opening here, the Rangers.
And that's
stadium, spending money, they're ready to roll.
Right. So you'd like what you see with the Rangers. You'd like for their future, to kind of take over a big market in Texas.
Yeah, and their big thing too. Let's not forget, they've had a couple pieces when they were really good there. They really didn't pan out.
Right.
As good as they could have. They really shortened that window. Natali Feliz, longevity, Alexi Ogando.
Yeah.
C.J. Wilson ended up leaving.
Mm-hmm.
Josh Hamilton ended up having to go, and then, not working at all. Nelson Cruz having to go and having his steroid issue. They had a couple pieces there where it kind of fell apart on them.
Right. Yeah, that's true.
Beltray was kind of their only one that kind of stuck around, and then Elvis Andrews having a relatively long career there.
Yeah, and Ian Kinsler ended up going to the Tigers or something afterwards, so it was like...
so they kind of... Prince Fielder didn't work out.
Yeah, right.
So they kind of had a couple bad misses there, or just bad luck there.
A lot of it was bad luck.
Yeah, being in a relatively tough division with the Astros there, and the A's being good, that doesn't really, help them much.
Yeah.
But yeah, they just kind of had a couple misses there. That's all. Some free agent misses and some guys prospects who just had injuries and stuff.
Yeah.
So that kind of shortened their window of being really good, but when they were really good, they were really good.
Oh, yeah. So,
that's, they're one of those kind of weird franchises where some of these positions, they have real legends, but then some of these other positions are relatively weak at.
Yeah. So. There's guys that if they step up and, they get a prospect at, one of the outfield positions or something, then they could be an all-time guy there. It's kind of hard when you have Pudge as the all-time catcher. That's kind of tough company.
Especially catcher's very hard to be really good at.
Yeah,
Look at them. There's been about 4 of them that are worth a damn on all these names we brought up. For the most part, they're just like, for that franchise, sure, really good defensively, but they're not like, this guy,
Yeah.
You bring up, like, you look at first basemen, all the first basemen we name. It's like, all right, Mark McGwire and the fellas,
Yeah,
in the
sure.
outfield, you got Ken Griffey and guys like that. And then you look at catcher, there's like 3 or 4 of them that are kind of good. Yogi and Carlton Fisk and Pudge. And it's like,
Yeah, right.
John
right.
Jaso, it's like,
yeah.
talking too much,
Yeah, it's strange because, the catcher position has always kind of traditionally been the hard one to get because you can typically get a guy that's a good defensive catcher, but then you have to get the guy that's the good offensive catcher. And
when you get both of them, you're a Hall of Famer.
And then, which
we've seen.
Yeah, exactly. So, there's some positions here, especially pitching. I think the Rangers are kind of like the Angels, where they just have a hard time getting. Well, it's recent with the Angels, I would say, just having a hard time getting the guy, to go there.
Especially again, harder division, offensive powered division. Also, Texas, the Rangers' old stadium, the ball blew out of there.
Oh, yeah.
It was 1,000,000 degrees in the summer. But the ball blew out the right field, so you don't really attract pitchers that way,
Yeah, that's true. It's like Colorado. You're not exactly getting the top market guys being like, yeah, I'll go to Colorado and get my ERA blown up by a point,
Get my ass kicked real quick, yeah. So other than that, that's all I got for the teams. The last little bit we got here. I mean, overall, that's a strong division.
Yeah.
Strong pitching. It's some of the strongest pitching we're gonna probably see.
Yeah, it's up there.
For a whole division. Now there's some weak spots. I mean, you can compare them, but overall, that's some really strong pitching.
Yeah.
Starting pitching at the very least, and some really strong outfield play too. But the last little thing got here is the trivia question, and this one's a little different. So there's been 5 perfect games thrown by the current 5 AL West teams. Over the years, they might not have been in the AL West all time, but from the current 5 AL West teams, being the Mariners, Rangers, A's, Angels, and Astros. So those 5 teams, there's been 5 perfect games thrown from those teams. Who threw them? And one of those teams don't have one. Oddly enough, after we just talked about all the great pitching, right?
Yeah, right.
So who were the 5 players that do a perfect game with these franchises? So the first one, we'll start with 1968. It was Catfish Hunter. 1984, Mike Witt with the Angels. Catfish being with the A's. 1994, Kenny Rogers with the Rangers. Third one. That's one people forget about.
Strange.
2010, on Mother's Day, Dallas Braden threw a perfect game. That was pretty much his career at that point.
Yep.
And we're talking, it was 2013.
2012.
2012. 2012 was King Felix with the Mariners.
Yep.
So there's your 5 perfect games by 4 of the franchises. A's having 2, the Astros having 0. So 5 perfect games out of 23 were thrown from these 5 teams, which is our area of topic today was the AL West. So want to have an AL West centric trivia question.
Yeah, I mean, not the some of those guys, not the most names. Dallas Braden and
the other guys were good careers. Mike Witt, not bad for sure. Kenny Rogers, very long career, not bad at all. Dallas Braden's obviously an outlier. It's your Phil Humber. It's your Andres Galarraga's almost, right?
And, you were just really good that day.
Yeah, and some luck and Mother's Day and stuff like that. Not your Catfish or King Felix,
Yeah.
But that's a trivia question, so it's a little different than we usually have. Yeah, it's pretty cool that we had, that many in that division. And what a team that still didn't have one.
Yeah, I know, and they've got a few no-hitters, if I'm not mistaken, because I would assume Nolan Ryan had 7.
7. You had Mike Scott in that team.
Yeah.
You had
Verlander did it there. I know that.
And Greinke of recent, and Garrett Cole, and guys like that who are really good pitchers for this team. But only a few no hitters and no perfect games. It's kind of it's hard to believe. Well, you remember the Rangers? I didn't. I was like, I don't think it. And then I seen Kenny Rogers. I'm like, that's right.
Yeah.
I got all about that one. I pick a team. I'm like, the Rangers don't have one.
Yeah, that's what I thought too. And you were like, no, they have one. And I'm like, don't tell me. It's one of these 2.
But then you think the Angels, they got some good guys over the years. And Mike Witt was the one that did it. Oh, that's kind of surprising. And King Felix, that doesn't surprise anyone. Catfish Hunter, all right, yeah.
Yeah, right.
It doesn't really surprise you, right?
No, those are names. Those are household names. So.
Yeah.
Plus, Felix was the most recent one, so you he's always in the statistical.
I know
it's
exactly
been
where I was too. I was trying to trade for him from our buddy Dom, and obviously that shut the door on that. But I know exactly where I was when that happened. I'm like, well, there goes that. So,
yeah. I remember where I was too. So
it was 3 that year.
Yeah, it was him, Philip Humber, and who's the third one?
It was Philip Humber, King Felix, and I think it was Roy Halladay.
Yeah, it makes sense. I think
it was Roy Halladay. Yeah. So. And then we haven't had any in a long time.
Yeah, and we just broke the record for most no-hitters in a year, and we don't have a perfect game.
Well,
although there were some guys that were close.
Yeah, guys throwing so hard and the strikeouts, you think, okay, no-hitters make sense. But guys throwing so hard and not really pitching as much as just kind of whipping her in there leads to walks and hit by pitches, right?
Right. Yeah, that's
the thing. Back then, you worked your way around. Look at these guys, Catfish Hunter, yeah, sure, Kenny Rogers, he wasn't going to overpower you. You knew how to pitch.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of get perfect games, right?
Yeah, I mean, and that's kind of, the league has lost a little bit of that. Well, hold on. I think I found out who it was in 2012. Yeah, there were 3. You were right. It wasn't Roy Halladay, though. Roy Halladay threw it in 2010. 2012 was your old buddy Matt Cain.
Oh, yeah.
I forgot about that one.
Yeah, okay.
And then he exploded. He forgot how to pitch.
Sure.
So, yeah, those were the 3 perfect games that year, and we haven't seen it, which is weird. Yeah, you got 3 in 1 year. We almost got used to it, and then all of a sudden...
You went 5 and 3 years. You had 2 in 2010,
Mm-hmm.
right, and 3 in
Yep.
2012. So that's 5 in a 3-year span, and then you haven't had one in 10 years, which is kind of how it goes. So you only have 23. You don't really have them, all the time.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
don't really get 7 no-hitters a year, right?
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't happen, right?
Yeah. Well, you should have one more with Galarraga, but we all know that.
We'll go there another day, right? So.
But that's kind of all I got for our list here for the AL West. There's almost quite literally nothing to talk about in baseball currently with the lockout, and
Nope.
and they weren't. We all knew they weren't really going to talk much holiday season.
The clock's ticking now.
Well, yeah.
We all kind of knew that. It was once January came. It's okay. Well, it's tick, 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 tick. Let's go.
Let's get talking.
Let's stop. Messing around. But they met twice in December. They actually had decent talks. The one meeting, but they don't even have a meeting scheduled right now. But now the clock's ticking.
Yeah.
For a while, it's like, we got a lockout. Now it's like, okay, it's the new year. It's ticking. The winter meetings were supposed to be going. Like it's the clock's ticking now.
Mm-hmm.
So, especially for some of these teams who spend a lot of money.
Right, yeah.
Just dish out a lot of money. It's like, hey, come on.
Yeah, I just made a big investment. Let's go.
So, I think, obviously the COVID stuff going on, ramping back up too, definitely doesn't really help them too much. But,
No, but
not much going on in baseball. Hopefully we'll start seeing some updates soon. But the other sports are rocking and rolling. Playoffs are coming for some of these sports in college, and it's a crazy time. So, hopefully baseball could jump back into the news here.
yeah, for sure.
And with the good news, jump back in saying, look what we're doing. We got a deal, and free agency starts going nuts again. It's
Well, and then all of a sudden the free agency explosion happens again, like it did before.
Yeah, baseball could jump into the news and instantly be the talk of the town.
Yeah,
Which is a good thing.
Oh,
If
yeah.
they do it right.
Well, if they do this right, then the lockout will almost mean nothing. It will have just been just a formality type thing. You had to
come out
do
to be
it.
timely news.
Yeah, right.
Where it was going, free agency was going nuts. People were talking baseball. Long period of time, let the other sports kind of take over, and then baseball comes flying back with free agency and new lockout, new deals, new rules, and it's talk of town. And then spring training comes, it's just almost lengthens your season.
Right. Yeah, because there's always something to talk
You're
about
almost
at that point.
lengthened in the limelight, which is
Right. Well, we still got 3 of these episodes. We move on to the NL in 2 weeks in the next episode. And then we'll do our prediction series. So we got a lot of time in between then. You just don't want them to take too long.
Because then spring training gets affected, and pitchers and catchers, and then the bad talks come. And do we move this? Do we move that? We don't need to get at.
Right. Yeah, we don't need a problem like we had in 2012 was a worldwide problem, but we don't need a problem like that. So I think they'll end up figuring it out. I'm staying optimistic. It wouldn't surprise me if they totally fumbled the bag, because that's what the MLB does anymore.
Yeah, our buddy, sure.
But I have faith, and I'm going to stay optimistic. So it hasn't gotten to the point yet where it's time to worry. And like I said, holiday season, they weren't going to talk anyway. Why would they? They never do.
No,
So
the clock wasn't ticking yet. We had a sand's pouring on the other side, so it's time to go.
right, yeah. So yeah, again, that's kind of all I got for this episode. We'll have more. Maybe we'll have better news in 2 weeks. Maybe we'll have something to talk about.
A little update, sure.
Yeah, well, maybe they met and they had good talks or whatever. But
they had some lunch or something.
yeah. Well, but yeah, that's all I got. So I don't know if you got anything else you want to close out with anything. If not, then we'll just wrap this up.
That's it. Obviously, we're every other week, so 2 weeks from now, we'll be talking about the NL, and we'll be in the NL East.
Yep.
Which is an exciting historic division in its own. Some really old teams and some younger teams, but still some historic.
Yeah.
It's like historic names. That NL East is quite powerful.
Yeah, you'll see some good pitching there.
Yeah. Then you get to the NL Central. Obviously, that's got the historic teams. That's going to be real fun to talk about. And the NL West, it's got some historic teams, but some new teams. So the NL West is going to be a little mishmash.
Yeah, they're going to be a little mix.
It's a little weird. NL Central is going to be powerhouse, and NL East is going to be pretty powerhouse too.
Yeah, it's going to be one of the better divisions. So. But, yeah, so we look forward to that. We'll be back in 2 weeks with that episode, and we'll continue through the NL. So we're all done with the AL, and we'll shift gears over to the NL in the next one. So with that, I guess we'll just wrap this one up.
That's it.
All right. Well, thank you guys for listening. You can catch this podcast on Apple Podcasts as well as Google Podcasts and Spotify. You can listen on our regularly updated YouTube channel as well as our website, screwball.podbean.com. You can follow me on Twitter at @RealMikeLepre. You can follow me on Instagram at Mike Lepre.
And you can follow me on Instagram and Twitter at FTubs10.
You can follow our official Screwball Twitter at ScrewballPod. You can follow our official Screwball Facebook at ScrewballPod. No E in Screw. And that's it from us, guys. We'll see you next week.
Yep, take care.